The arsenal plans include a system to digitally manage the flow of information, making it possible to shape the truth for their own purposes.
Imagine a world where 90% of human connection is contextualized. Each and every interaction we have is increasingly feeding a monster of our own making. The non-stop informational treadmill that directs our thoughts, opinions, and free time, eating and logging every negative thought and ugly emotion, to be made spectacle for the masses. The very way that you subconsciously navigate your life. If this sounds familiar, you might be alive right now, or you've played Metal Gear Solid 2. I'm SnailOXD. On this channel, we analyze video games and the cultural zeitgeist surrounding them. We've touched on Dead by Daylight's toxicity, how Five Nights at Freddy's was made, and Sons of the Forest. This video will be a little different for two reasons. One, this is an older game, one from a series near and dear to my heart, so there will be spoilers for the story. If you don't want a recap on the story, skip to the time ahead. And two, given the subject nature of thematic analysis, which is what we're doing here today, this is mostly opinion-based. If you disagree, tell me why in the comments. Without further ado, let's ride. Before anything else, I'm going to briefly summarize the plot of Metal Gear Solid 2. If you're familiar and don't want the recap, just skip to the time below to get my thoughts. There is a lot of Metal Gear Solid lore out there. The story is rich and really only rivaled by Chris Chan lore. Much like Chris Chan lore, there are so many tiny little details that easily get lost under the bigger cultural moments.
There's a terminal in front of the elevator, a node.
Did you say nerd?
Not nerd, node.
Oh.
I'm gonna do my best to fit all the relevant stuff into a plot recall, but keep in mind this is by no means exhaustive. We're talking organizations and characters and plot lines that span 5 or more games on several different platforms. For example, the Sons of Liberty are an organization that really only appears in this game, so we'll discuss them. In the same vein, I'm not going to explain Liquid Ocelot's life up till this point. We'll be here all night, and while I'm sure you like my voice, you have other things you want to do with your time. Ready? Okay. Metal Gear Solid 2 has 2 stories, the Tanker Incident where you play as Solid Snake and the Big Shell Incident where you play as Ryder. The Tanker Incident sets the stage for the Big Shell Incident in several ways. Solid Snake, aided by Otacon, boards a Marine tanker that's carrying a brand new US government-made Metal Gear. His objective is to infiltrate the tanker and take photos of the Metal Gear, upload them to the internet, and expose the secret Marine project named Metal Gear Ray. As soon as he boards, the tanker is attacked by a Russian mercenary group led by this guy, Colonel Campbell, his pregnant daughter Olga, and a dude named okay, he can say it.
I am Shalashaska, also called Revolver Ocelot.
Snake's objective remains the same, but with much more hostility in the way now. Being
the perfect warrior.
He completes his objectives just as Ocelot crashes the Marine Metal Gear reveal. Ocelot kills Gerlukovich, steals Metal Gear Ray, and sinks the tanker, escaping into the night. Post-incident, Solid Snake is declared dead and painted as a terrorist, having been blamed for the sinking of the tanker. That's the end of the tanker incident. In the 2 years between this and Big Shell, the pollution in the New York harbor is becoming a problem. So Big Shell is built as an ecological cleanup facility to deal with the aftermath. 2 years pass by uneventfully, until the US President Johnson, is taken hostage while giving a tour of the facility. The group taking him hostage is named the Sons of Liberty. The Sons of Liberty is comprised of Fortune, who is a mercenary whose father was the Marine commander from the tanker incident. Above everything, she simply wants to die and end her suffering. Vamp is an interesting character. He seems to be the only character here that doesn't have an express motive to be here. He drinks blood, has super speed, and invincibility. He is also extremely attracted to Raiden. Not much more is known about his past, but he's such a memorable villain nonetheless. Fat Man is the protege of bomb expert Peter Stillman. The two have a father-son relationship in pretty much all but name. Peter is here because he feels responsible for the monster he's created in Fat Man, and Fat Man likewise feels joy being able to show off for his mentor. He shows off, sending the group on a wild goose chase to defuse his bombs around the big shell. And finally, the leader of the Sons of Liberty is a man who is calling himself Solid Snake. We don't know much more about him at this point in the story, but we learn much more later. Anyway, the Sons of Liberty take the president and the tour group hostage. This is where Raiden comes in. Raiden is a special operative working with Foxhound, who is tasked with the rescue of President Johnson and the assassination of the Sons of Liberty. He is supported by Colonel Campbell and his girlfriend Rosemary. Raiden is extremely confused as to why Rosemary is involved, but proceeds with the mission anyway. According to Campbell, the situation is that the Sons of Liberty want $30 billion in cash in exchange for releasing the hostages. If the $30 billion isn't paid by the deadline, the Sons will blow up Big Shell, creating a global ecological disaster from all the contaminants stored at the facility. Raiden is being sent in secret. Meanwhile, a Navy SEAL team, SEAL Team 10, is sent in response to the attack. Raiden is expressly told to not let anyone see him. Not even the SEALs. Maybe not a bad thing though, because the SEALs are not having a good time whatsoever, taking heavy casualties from their encounters with the Sons of Liberty. Raiden is a complete and total beginner when it comes to espionage. He's played through VR training and scored perfectly, so he thinks he knows what he's doing. But as the later character points out to him,
VR, huh?
But realistic in every way.
A virtual grunt of the digital age, that's just great.
That's far more effective than live exercises.
You don't get injured in VR, do you? Every year, a few soldiers die in field exercises.
There's pain sensation in VR and even a sense of reality and urgency. The only difference is it isn't actually happening.
That's the way they want you to think, to remove you from the fear that goes with battle situations. War is a video game. What better way to raise the ultimate soldier?
more interesting about Raiden, he can't seem to remember the big events in his life. For example, throughout the mission, Rose asks him if he remembers why April 30th is important. His literal only response is, sorry babe, can't remember. What a Chad. Shortly after infill, he shares a homoerotic moment with Vamp. He is nearly killed until he is rescued by Solid's Iroquois Pliskin. Pliskin might look like Solid Snake. I promise, it's not Solid Snake. For reasons. Pliskin is the last surviving member of the SEAL Team 10, the SEAL sent in to deal with the Sons of Liberty. Vamp disappears, angered that his intimate moment has been ruined. Pliskin and Raiden meet Navy SEAL bomb expert Peter Stillman. The team learns that Stillman's former protege, Fat Man, has rigged the big shell to blow, so they set out to disarm all the bombs across the facility. Eventually, with all the bombs disarmed, Raiden meets Fat Man on the helipad, fighting him to the death. And afterwards, he meets a cyborg ninja. This is a character from Metal Gear Solid 1 that should really be dead. And they are. Because this is actually Olga Gurlukovich in disguise. Hold on a minute. Olga? Snake? Didn't these two die during the tanker incident? Well, if you feel confused, don't worry, because that's normal for Metal Gear Solid. Let's rewind. After the tanker sinking, Solid Snake and Olga are rescued by Otacon, real name Hal Emmerich. Snake also uses his twin brother's corpse, because that's just something he has lying around, that is, Liquid Snake from the first game, as a DNA decoy to fake his own death. After this, the trio go into hiding. Meanwhile, the government frames him as the cause for the tanker sinking, branding him a terrorist. Cyborg Olga tells Raiden that there is a Metal Gear housed in the big shell. She also gives him a cell phone and tells him to talk to Richard Ames, a Secret Service member assigned to protect the president, who is also now a hostage. Raiden disguises himself as a Russian soldier, finds Ames, and when he asks Ames,
Secret Service?
No, I was sent in by the Lali Lule Lo, just like you.
What?
Raiden learns that no hostages were killed whatsoever in retaliation to SEAL Team 10's failed infill. This is something that Campbell told him had happened earlier in his mission. Ames also tells Raiden that the president is still alive, and he's on Shell 2's core. We also learn that, after eavesdropping on Ocelot, Olga, and the man calling himself Solid Snake, that the president has willingly entered his login for the Black Case, a weapon system that allows the president to launch US nukes at whichever targets he'd like. When checking back in with Ames, Raiden relays the information. Ames says that the president is probably tired of being a puppet, and reacts with absolute bewilderment when told that there was a ransom demanded by the Sons.
What are you babbling about? The nuclear strike is not a threat. It's been the objective all along.
They plan to slaughter millions of people.
No, a high-altitude detonation. You've heard of the Compton effect?
Total disruption of electronic equipment caused by EMMA pulse.
Textbook answer. Well, when an average nuclear warhead goes off within the atmosphere, the result is an electromagnetic pulse of up to 50 billion megawatts. The EMMA field can reach tens of thousands of volts per meter, and most electronic equipment will be toast in an instant.
If one of the key movers of world economy stops functioning, it could mean the beginning of a global depression.
But that isn't their aim. What they plan to do is liberate Manhattan, pull it offline and turn it into some kind of a republic. Hence, Sons of Liberty, I suppose.
Sons of Liberty?
Damn! Ocelot is coming.
Ocelot comes over to the two, confronts Ames.
Know what you are, Colonel Ames. They knew that the president was planning to betray them, so they sent you in to keep tabs on him.
And then Ames mysteriously dies. On his way to Shell 2, Raiden meets the leader of the Sons of Liberty, a man calling himself Solid Snake. However, as that Pliskin fella points out to us,
No! That is not Solid Snake!
we learn this is actually Solidus Snake, the third Big Boss clone and therefore Solid Snake's brother. Even crazier, Solid Snake is the former US President George Sears. After fighting Solidus in a Harrier, we find President Johnson, who in a fit of paranoia grabs Raiden by the crotch.
I'm prepared to face the consequences of my betrayal.
What are you... What the...
You're a man?
This confirms the president's suspicion that Raiden is, in fact, a man. After switching to nanocommunications, he reveals to Raiden that the presidency is a sham.
That's correct. I punched the sequence in myself.
You're working for them?
If you asked me 2 hours ago, my answer would have been yes.
But why stoop to terrorism?
I wanted absolute power.
But you're the president. You have power.
No, I'm just a figurehead.
What?
I don't have any control. The real power is in the Patriots' hands.
The Patriots are a shadow government type of group, and they're led by a group of 12 members named the Wise Men's Committee, who all secretly pull the strings of society from behind the scenes. American politics are nothing more than a stage play aimed at satisfying the public, and the Patriots are the ones with the casting couch.
Then where's the new Metal Gear?
Right here. To be more precise, this entire Big Shell facility is the new Metal Gear.
After also revealing that the Big Shell is a front project for the creation of Arsenal Gear, and of an all-powerful AI named GW, Johnson tries to get Raiden to kill him.
What the?
That's abusing your right to free speech, Mr. President. Or is it ex-president?
The president! Why did you...
Alas, my finger must have slipped. I'll see you around, carrier boy.
After some discussion, the team decides to try shutting down Arsenal with the help of Emma Emmerich. Emma, or EE, as Otacon calls her, is Otacon's younger stepsister from another mother. The two are estranged since Hal left after having an affair with her mother. Emma has a disc with a virus capable of shutting down GW, so Raiden rescues EE until Vamp shows up. Vamp, angry that a woman is present, vibe checks Emma. Raiden shoots Vamp, and while the virus is cut off prematurely,
Damn! The connection's been cut.
Emma dies in Otacon's arms.
Emma? Emma? Emma! Emma! Answer me!
It's shortly after this that Raiden is captured by Olga in the cyborg suit, revealing who she is. That Pliskin fella is nowhere to be seen, but Solid Snake makes his reappearance, seemingly betraying Raiden.
You're changing sides now?
Change sides? I don't recall saying I was on yours.
Raiden wakes up later in front of Solidus and Olga from inside Arsenal. Here Raiden learns his real past. His real name is Jack, and he grew up as a prolific child soldier in the Liberian Civil War. His adopted father is actually Solidus Snake, who murdered Jack's parents and then trained him to be a child soldier in the first place. After Solidus leaves Olga with Raiden, Olga reveals she's actually a double agent. She was working with the Patriots to ensure Raiden's success. She tells us that she's working with the Patriots because they've taken her daughter hostage. In order to save her daughter's life, she needs to ensure Raiden doesn't die. She then releases Raiden, who leaves to meet up with Solid Snake. The entire time, Raiden is receiving these strange out-of-context transmissions from the Colonel. Here are some of those transmissions now.
Even my patience has its limits. I just can't leave this thing up to you any longer. I'll do the fighting. You can just go home. Honestly, though, you have played the game for a long time. Don't you have anything else to do with your time? I hear it's amazing when the famous purple stuffed worm in Flapjaw Space with the tuning fork does a raw blink on Harry Carey Rock. I need scissors. 61.
It should be noted that before this point in the game, the Colonel is consistently urging Raiden to disregard Solid Snake since he wasn't a part of the VR training. There is increasing distrust growing between the Colonel and Raiden, with Raiden constantly asking if he's hiding anything. He learns that this Colonel Campbell is actually a construct of GW, the same AI on Arsenal gear, and thus the AI of the Patriots. He also learns that his girlfriend, Rosemary, is actually a spy who was tasked with getting close to Jack and becoming his lover.
That day at Federal Hall 2 years ago, it wasn't a coincidence. I was ordered to keep an eye on you.
Keep an eye on me?
Yes, by the Patriots.
You're a spy?
I suppose. Yes. It's an ugly word.
Was sleeping with me a part of the job?
I fell in love with you.
How could anyone?
I can't excuse what I did.
No matter where I go, I get used.
The more love you gave me, the more it hurt. Because I knew the person you loved was just a character. Jack.
What?
I'm carrying. I'm pregnant, Jack.
Rose, what's going on?
As Solid Snake and Raiden fight their way through Arsenal, they're confronted by Fortune. Snake tells Raiden to go ahead, while Snake keeps her busy. Raiden goes to the top of Arsenal, where he fights several AI-controlled Metal Gear Rays. The virus causes them to malfunction, leaving just Raiden and Solidus at the top. Olga, in order to buy time for Raiden and thus save her daughter, reveals her double agent status to Solidus, who then promptly kills her. Fortune, Ocelot, and Solidus then gather Snake and Raiden together before Ocelot reveals that he is working with the Patriots to enact what is called the S3 plan.
What are you talking about? Everything you've done here has been scripted, a little exercise set up by us. The S3 plan was conceived as a means to produce soldiers on par with Solid Snake. That's what I told you. This is the S3 training kernel, an orchestrated recreation of Shadow Moses.
What?
Ames and the President's deaths, a ninja. A computer virus that mimics Fox Die.
The S3 program was the real objective of the mission all along. S3 stands for Selection of Societal Sanity. The objective of this program was to control and manipulate world events, public opinion, political sway, and the flow of information worldwide. A second objective to this plan was to recreate Solid Snake, the perfect soldier, by completely simulating the events of Shadow Moses Island. In staging the plan on Big Shell, the Patriots entirely recreated the events of Metal Gear Solid 1, down to the fact that two snakes are fighting each other. The one and only hiccup in this plan was that Solid Snake was not expected to appear. This effectively throws a wrench into their plans, since Snake spent the vast majority of the mission poking holes in Raiden's mission briefing. In the end, Liquid Ocelot shoots Fortune before stealing a Metal Gear Ray. Snake goes after him. Arsenal Gear crashes into Manhattan, while Jack and Solidus are on it, and we get possibly one of the most chilling cutscenes in video game history.
So, Jack the Ripper, will it be Solidus, the Patriots' creation, or you, Solidus's creation? Our beloved monsters, enjoy yourselves.
With that, Raiden fights and kills Solidus, before meeting Solid Snake on the ground. Solid Snake gives Raiden his take on things, which counts as a perfect foil against AI Campbell's speech to Raiden. And that is the end of Metal Gear Solid 2. I glossed over some points here and there, but as anyone who knows Metal Gear Solid can tell you, we'd be here for hours if we were covering every single detail. The part most people associate with having predicted the future is the last codec call with the Colonel. I didn't play it during the plot recap, so let's watch it now.
Raiden, are you receiving? We're still here.
How's that possible? The AI was destroyed!
Only GW.
Who are you?
To begin with, we're not what you'd call human. Over the past 200 years, a kind of consciousness formed layer by layer in the crucible of the White House. It's not unlike the way life started in the oceans 4 billion years ago. The White House was our primordial soup, a base of evolution. We are formless. We are the very discipline and morality that Americans invoke so often. How can anyone hope to eliminate us? As long as this nation exists, so will we.
Cut the crap! If you're immortal, why would you take away individual freedoms and censor the net?
Jack, don't be silly.
Don't you know that our plans have your interests, not ours, in mind?
What?
Jack, listen carefully, like a good boy.
The mapping of the human genome was completed early this century. As a result, the evolutionary log of the human race lay open to us.
We started with genetic engineering, and in the end, we succeeded in digitizing life itself.
But there are things not covered by genetic information.
What do you mean?
Human memories, ideas, culture, history.
Genes don't contain any record of human history.
Is it something that should not be passed on? Should that information be left at the mercy of nature?
We've always kept records of our lives, through words, pictures, symbols, from tablets to books.
But not all the information was inherited by later generations. A small percentage of the whole was selected and processed, then passed on. Not unlike genes, really.
That's what history is, Jack.
But in the current digitized world, trivial information is accumulating every second, preserved in all its triteness, never fading, always accessible.
Rumors about petty issues, misinterpretations, slander.
All this junk data, preserved in an unfiltered state, growing at an alarming rate.
It will only slow down social progress, reduce the rate of evolution.
Right. You seem to think that our plan is one of censorship.
Are you telling me it's not?
You're being silly. What we propose to do is not to control content, but to create context.
Create context?
The digital society furthers human flaws and selectively rewards development of convenient half-truths. Just look at the strange juxtapositions of morality around you.
Billions spent on new weapons in order to humanely murder other humans.
Rights of criminals are given more respect than the privacy of their victims.
Although there are people suffering in poverty, huge donations are made to protect endangered species. Everyone grows up being told the same thing.
Be nice to other people.
But beat out the competition.
You're special. Believe in yourself and you will succeed.
But it's obvious from the start that only a few can succeed.
You exercise your right to freedom, and this is the result. All rhetoric to avoid conflict and protect each other from hurt. The untested truths, spun by different interests, continue to churn and accumulate in the sandbox of political correctness and value systems.
Everyone withdraws into their own small gated community, afraid of a larger forum. They stay inside their little ponds, leaking whatever truth suits them into the growing cesspool of society at large.
The different cardinal truths neither clash nor mesh. No one is invalidated, but nobody is right.
Not even natural selection can take place here. The world is being engulfed in truth.
And this is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper.
We're trying to stop that from happening.
It's our responsibility as rulers. Just as in genetics, unnecessary information and memory must be filtered out to stimulate the evolution of the species.
And you think you're qualified to decide what's necessary and not?
Absolutely. Who else could wade through the sea of garbage you people produce, retrieve valuable truths, and even interpret their meaning for later generations?
That's what it means to create context.
I'll decide for myself what to believe and what to pass on.
But is that even your own idea?
Or something Snake told you.
That's the proof of your incompetence right there. You lack the qualifications to exercise free will.
That's not true. I have the right.
Does something like a self exist inside of you?
That which you call self serves as nothing more than a mask to cover your own being.
In this era of ready-made truths, self is just something used to preserve those positive emotions that you occasionally feel.
Another possibility is that self is a concept you conveniently borrowed under the logic that it would endow you with some sense of strength.
That's crap!
Is it? Would you prefer that someone else tell you? All right then. Explain it to him.
Jack, you're simply the best, and you got there all by yourself.
Oh, what happened? Do you feel lost? Why not try a bit of soul-searching?
Don't think you'll find anything, though.
Ironic that although self is something that you yourself fashioned, every time something goes wrong, you turn around and place the blame on something else.
It's not my fault. It's not your fault.
In denial, you simply resort to looking for another, more convenient truth in order to make yourself feel better.
Leaving behind in an instant the so-called truth you once embraced.
Should someone like that be able to decide what is truth?
Should someone like you even have the right to decide?
You've done nothing but abuse your freedom.
You don't deserve to be free.
We're not the ones smothering the world. You are.
The individual is supposed to be weak, but far from powerless. A single person has the potential to ruin the world.
And the age of digitized communication has given even more power to the individual. Too much power for an immature species.
Building a legacy involves figuring out what is wanted and what needs to be done for that goal. All this you used to struggle with. Now we think for you.
We are your guardians, after all.
You want to control human thought? Human behavior?
Of course. Anything can be quantified nowadays. That's what this exercise was designed to prove.
You fell in love with me just as you were meant to, after all. Isn't that right, Jack?
Ocelot was not told the whole truth, to say the least.
We rule an entire nation. Of what interest would a single soldier, no matter how able, be to us?
The S3 plan does not stand for solid snake simulation. What it does stand for is selection for societal sanity. The S3 is a system for controlling human will and consciousness. S3 is not you, a soldier trained in the image of Solid Snake. It is a method, a protocol that created a circumstance that made you what you are.
So you see, we're the S3, not you.
So this scene is credited with the prediction of modern-day social media. Echo chambers, endlessly shifting moral sensibilities, an onslaught of completely inconsequential information almost all of the time. Meanwhile, absolutely unimportant things go viral while the pursuit of greater knowledge is thrown aside. In short, Twitter. However, as damning as that scene is, and as poignant as it might be in its predictions, there's something important that most people don't think about when they remember this scene. It's the context in which Metal Gear Solid 2's story operates. I believe that while you can say that Metal Gear Solid 2 leaves us with a sense of foreboding, especially being a game in 2001 that no longer feels like science fiction, there's a really important counter-argument at play here. No one was expecting Solid Snake to be there. He deftly infiltrates the facility almost as soon as Raiden does. Meanwhile, the Colonel is consistently trying to steer Raiden away from Snake. Snake consistently introduces ideas that challenge the notion of Raiden being controlled by GW. As Raiden continues his mission, He repeatedly discovers just how little he actually knows about what's going on, and how little his superiors allow him to know. Snake is consistently pushing him to think for himself. Snake's counter-argument is that even if control is wrested away on a mass scale, we can still work to pass on the things that were important enough for us to fight for. The things we believed during life, our culture, history, values, and morals, can all be passed down at an individual level. The idea that we don't just have a lineage of genetics, but a lineage of ideas and values, and that it is our responsibility to pass those things down. Metal Gear Solid 2 ultimately is a story about passing things on, passing the torch to a newer generation, if you will. Almost every single relationship and interaction in the game revolves around a dynamic of mentor and pupil, many times involving the concept of family. In fact, almost every character fits this dynamic in some sense. Some examples: Olga receives the mercenary team from her father, who then passes on her life to her daughter by literally dying for her. Fat Man is playful with his bomb locations to where it almost seems he wants to impress and show up his mentor Peter Stillman. Hal and Emma are both people who have the unfortunate family legacy of having created Metal Gear. They both work to counteract it in their own ways. Raiden himself perfectly embodies this through several of his own relationships. At the beginning of the game, Jack is a blank slate. He doesn't know who he is or what his purpose in life is. All he has is the mission. His memories are sparse, to the point where he can't even remember when he met his girlfriend Rose. He doesn't seem to remember the teachings that Solid has passed on to him through making him a child soldier either. He only remembers his VR training through the Patriots. After he meets Solid Snake, he's caught between a constant tug of war between doing what the Patriots want him to do and helping Solid Snake secure hostages, stop terrorists, and destroy Arsenal gear. In the context of Jack's character arc, Snake and GW both act as great foils to one another. GW wants to control the whole of humanity in the interests of both the Patriots and humanity at large. They seek to contextualize the information they pass down, and thus the ability for humanity to determine for itself what's important. Snake does not care what Raiden is fighting for. In a really telling moment near the end of the game, Raiden asks Snake what he should fight for.
Find something to believe in, and find it for yourself. And when you do, pass it on to the future.
Believe in what?
That's your problem. Come on.
Raiden looks up to Snake as a hero, but is being directed by GW, albeit unknowingly. Every relationship in the story centers around these exchanges of knowledge, value, morals, culture, history. Most of the relationships also involve the pupil breaking away from their mentor in some way. It's not just what information we receive, it's the exercising of our agency in how we enact that information. Olga takes command from her father after his death. Emma helps create Arsenal gear, yes, but then she also helps destroy it. We will always have something passed to us, whether against our will like Jack being made a child soldier, or like Jack choosing to help rescue hostages in the Big Shell. It's what we do with what's given to us that matters the most. Taking up the mantle, and either fighting for or against these things. This is even reflected in the location where Jack and Solidus have their final battle. They fight it out on the roof of the Federal Hall in Manhattan. Federal Hall, of course, is the same building where the first Congress of the United States of America was hosted, as well as where George Washington was sworn in as the first president. So much like Americans won the war to determine their own destiny, so too does Jack kill Solidus, effectively winning his agency back from both the Patriots and his past as a child soldier. Jack makes his way down to the street to meet with Solid Snake. The two share a moment. After all the secrecy, twists, lies, and uncomfortable truths that Jack has had to face, he has a crisis of identity. He's been landed into all of this shit completely against his will, so it's understandable that he now lacks a sense of direction. Solid Snake hears him out. He tells Raiden not to worry. Though everything may have been wrapped in lies and deceit, the things Jack experienced, the memories he carries, and his mission, those were all real. He continues by saying the following.
There's no such thing in the world as absolute reality. Most of what they call real is actually fiction. What you think you see is only as real as your brain tells you it is.
Then, what am I supposed to believe in? What am I going to leave behind when I'm through?
We can tell other people about having faith. What we had faith in. What we found important enough to fight for. It's not whether you were right or wrong, but how much faith you were willing to have. That decides the future. The Patriots are a kind of ongoing fiction too, come to think of it. Listen, don't obsess over words so much. Find the meaning behind the words, then decide. You can find your own name. And your own future.
Decide for myself?
And whatever you choose will be you.
I don't know if I can.
I know you didn't have much in terms of choices this time. But everything you felt, thought about during this mission is yours. And what you decide to do with them is your choice.
You mean start over?
Yeah, a clean slate, a new name, new memories. Choose your own legacy. It's for you to decide. It's up to you.
Jack is free. He's no longer Raiden, or Snake, or even Jack if he doesn't want to be. He doesn't have to be a former child soldier, or a tool of the Patriots. It's on him to decide the course of his own life, to fight for what he has faith in, the version of reality he wishes to be real. For the first time in perhaps his entire life, Jack must now decide on who he wants to be, why he wants to be, and how he will achieve that. And this is the core of Metal Gear Solid 2's message. So what if technology is working in tandem with corporations to sway us en masse and cause social schisms for no better reason than a few more clicks? It doesn't matter if every algorithm on the planet is working in tandem to balkanize people into tribes and echo chambers. And it doesn't matter if society labels you one thing or the other. You get to decide what you are. You and you alone are in complete control of your destiny. And it's on you to take up the mantle and write your story. The things that you want to pass down, the things that you're passionate about, the things you loved. In the sea of absolutely useless information, you know what you're all about. Not GW, nor Facebook, nor Twitter, or politicians. None of these can define you. You are in sole command of your person. You can choose which things you'd like to be passed on and which things you don't want to pass on. You can tell people what was important to you and what you stood for, how you stood for it. Something worth passing on to the next generation. This is the final scene of the game, and it's quite possibly the most important dialogue. This scene speaks for itself, so I'm going to leave you with it, but before I go, thank you so much for choosing to watch this video, and I hope you choose to subscribe for more videos like this. No matter whether you thought this was important or thought it wasn't, I pass this knowledge down to you, knowing that I believe in this message. What you decide to do with it?
That's your problem.
Do you remember this place?
Of course. This is where we first met. I remember now. Today is the day I met you.
That's it.
I think I found something to pass along to the future.
What?
He said all living things want their genes to live on.
Are you talking about the baby?
Yeah. The genes aren't the only thing you pass on. There are too many things that aren't written into our DNA. It's up to us to teach that to our children.
What kind of things?
About the environment, our ideas, our culture, poetry, compassion, sorrow, joy. We'll tell them everything together.
Is that a proposal?
This is for your ears only.